Today is the continuation of a new series, and I believe it will be one of my most exciting video series to date. In this video and in this series, I'm researching some epic basketball stories about some of the greatest players of all time. I'll do my best to research these stories to figure out what specific games they're talking about, and I'll do my best to inform you guys on the details of the event. Today, I have a story from the legendary Michael Jordan that he tells about himself and about his teammate center, Luc Longley. Take a listen.
In '98, we were playing the Utah Jazz. In Utah Jazz, Scottie Pippen was out, and we knew we just played Utah in the finals the year before. So every game we play against Utah is a message. You want to send a message. I go to Luc at the beginning of the game. I said, look, you have to establish yourself inside. You have to dominate. We're gonna come to you early. You're really gonna have to set the tone for us because we don't have Scottie, it's me and Dennis and you. So he understood that. He knew the importance of that. The first quarter ends. Luc has 12 points, 4 blocks, and 4 rebounds. And I go to Luc, I say, that's how you play, man. You do that, we dominate. We up by 16. We're killing them in their building. At the end of the game, Luc had 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 blocks. We're winning by 16, we lose by 15. And I just chuckled and I just looked at Luc and I said, you know what, Luc? That is the last time I'm gonna give you a compliment in the middle of the game.
Now I gotta cut the interview short because it goes on for quite a while, and I wanna keep this video moving. But you should know that this interview was actually pretty wholesome by the end of it, as MJ talks about the things he taught Luc and the things that Luc taught him. But we know how the internet works. And the part that went viral was where MJ was seemingly roasting his teammate for completely disappearing after the first quarter. But just how accurate is this story? Well, to get an answer for that, let's first look at MJ's clues and try to figure out which game he was talking about. According to Michael, this game was against the Utah Jazz. He said the game was played in 1998, and it was the season after they had just defeated the Jazz in the NBA Finals for the first time. He said that it was in their building, meaning Utah, and he said that Scottie Pippen was unable to play that night, presumably because of his back injury. Well, right out of the gates, I gotta get on MJ for an incorrect detail in this story. During the entirety of the Bulls' second three-peat, where Michael Jordan and Luc Longley were teammates, there was never a single game where Scottie Pippen didn't also play. I checked their regular season games, their finals games, and even the preseason. And again, Scottie played on every single night against Utah when Michael Jordan and Luc Longley were teammates. So at least from that perspective, MJ is inaccurate with this story. Now, MJ did say that it was in Utah in 1998 and heavily implied that it was during the regular season, since he referred to it as a statement game and a measuring stick game, which are typically only used to describe regular season matchups. Well, during the 97 to 98 regular season, the Bulls and Jazz only played against each other twice. And since they were in separate conferences, only one of those games were played in Utah, which tells me that I found the game that MJ was talking about. It was on February 4th, 1998, in a highly anticipated matchup between the two previous finals participants. The Bulls had a 34-14 record, which was the best in the Eastern Conference, while the Jazz had a 30-15 record, which had them sitting at 5th in the West. Many people expected this to be a preview for the upcoming NBA Finals in June, but there was even more drama off the court. Just earlier that morning, an article dropped in the Chicago Tribune, where Bulls general manager Jerry Krause said that he would love to have MJ back next season, but that he would have to play for someone else because it isn't going to be Phil Jackson. Just prior to the game starting, a clearly hurt and frustrated Michael Jordan said that this would mean he wouldn't be returning to play basketball because there was no circumstances where he was willing to play without his head coach. Emotions were high heading into tip-off, and although Scottie Pippen was starting in this game, it's worth mentioning that their 6'10 forward Tony Kukoc was out with an injury. This might have been an aspect that MJ mixed up in his memory, and maybe it was actually Kukoc's absence that led MJ to approach Luc Longley about setting the tone early. Not only were the Bulls looking for revenge for their loss to the Jazz earlier that regular season, but they were also looking to channel their anger that had been sparked by Krause's comments. As a result, Chicago stormed out of the gates, playing with a tremendous amount of energy and intensity. In that first quarter, everything seemed to go right for Chicago, as they were hitting 52% of their shots while the Jazz were only hitting 33%. On top of that, the Bulls forced the Jazz into 5 turnovers, while Chicago didn't commit a single turnover for the entirety of the first. After one, Jordan had 10 points and was 6 of 10 from the field. Luc Longley was doing his job well, just as MJ had asked him to. At the end of the first, Luc had 8 points, 6 rebounds, and 0 blocks, which is far from the 12, 4, and 4 that MJ described. But regardless, that was still a great opening quarter for Longley, and the Bulls had a massive lead of 35-13. But that momentum was hard to hang on to, as Utah was one of the most energetic environments in the NBA at that point. Utah began to storm back, and at the end of the first half, they cut the lead down to 11. Longley had a massive drop-off from his first quarter, as he only had 0 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 block in the second quarter. Now into the third quarter, and the Jazz strongly secured the momentum of the game, as John Stockton was facilitating as if he was in his peak form, and Karl Malone was getting basket after basket, all while Longley was continuously getting beat in the paint. Roughly halfway into the third quarter, and Pippen comes up hobbling after he aggravated his back. He was then taken out of the game and was done for the night. This may have been why MJ thought he didn't play this game, because Pippen's playing time was eventually limited because of the injury. Without Kukoc and Pippen for the rest of the night, MJ had to try to carry the team offensively, so he started looking to score nearly every time down the court. MJ was getting his points, but he was having to take a lot of shots to make it happen, all while Longley is still struggling to get himself going. And that third quarter, Luc had 0 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 turnovers. By the fourth quarter, the writing was on the wall as the outcome started to become very clear for everyone who was watching. MJ was doing his best to keep Chicago in it as he scored 11 points in the fourth quarter alone. But the Jazz shot a lethal 70.6% from the field over the course of the final 12 minutes. By the time the buzzer sounded, the comeback was complete as the Jazz won the game 101-93. And at this point, they had swept the Bulls in that regular season, which led many Utah fans to think that this was their year to win the championship. Michael Jordan had finished with 40 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists on 17 of 37 shooting. John Stockton had 17 points, 18 assists, and 5 steals. And the mailman, Karl Malone, had finished with 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. Then, of course, there was the central focus of this story, which was Luc Longley. After one quarter, Luc had 8 points, 6 rebounds, and 0 blocks. And at the end of the game, he had just 8 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 block, which again was way off from the 12, 4, and 4 that MJ described. Which brings me to my next point. Michael Jordan was hilariously inaccurate with his telling of this story, more so than any other player in this series so far. He said that Scottie Pippen didn't play, which was false. He said that Luc had 12, 4, and 4, which was false. He said that they were winning by 16 at the end of the first, but it was actually 22. And he said that they lost by 15, but it was actually just 8. In this interview, MJ was literally just throwing out random numbers with full confidence, which I just think is actually quite comical. The spirit of what he was saying was true though, which is essentially that Luc played well in the first and the Bulls were up big. Luc then dropped off for the rest of the game and the Bulls lost. Obviously, they got it all figured out by the end of the season though, considering how the Bulls went on to defeat this same Utah Jazz team in the NBA Finals, which earned them their 6th championship ring in just 8 years. So what do you guys think? What is a story that I should cover in this series? If you've suggested it before, keep suggesting it, and I'll try my best to get to it eventually. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.